Good morning, Claremont Center for Spiritual Living. How are you this morning? I'm Reverend Tracy Earlywine, and so glad you're joining us online for our Sunday morning celebration. How good it is to be in community, even if we don't see each other, just to know that there is a community of people here to support and love and know the truth for each and every one of us. It lifts everyone up, and I am so glad that you are joining us for that today. I want to let you know that our practitioner today is Pat Richards, borrowed from Harmony Center in Whittier. She'll be doing our opening prayer and invocation. Our own practitioners are still very active. They are available to you always for prayer and support. You can find their contact information on the web or in our weekly e-blast, or you can call the church office. We have a prayer request line. Let us support you in knowing your truth, no matter what you're going through, or perhaps it's just to celebrate and continue something wonderful in your life. This is what we are here for. This is what we do for each other, and we are happy to do it for you. So do take advantage of that. So to begin today, we're going to start with a moment of going within. And I'm going to invite you to close your eyes and take a deep breath and just listen to the sound of the bowl. Letting that sound take you deep within to that heart space. That place of light and love and peace, where we know only oneness.
And right here, right now, in this amazing God-filled space, we know that God is. And oh, what an amazing day it is today. A day filled with love and joy and laughter and energy. What a blessing it is to be here today, to be here for this amazing day, to step forward and embrace the day. Because no matter what, it is a gift. And it is a gift for us to take and open and be surprised at, and just let it spread all its goodness out and into the world. And we can do that by knowing the truth for ourselves. And our truth is that we are strong, capable, amazing, God-filled beings that are here to embrace the day and lift each other up. This is our time. This is our time to take the hand of your spouse, of your significant other, of your family member, a friend, or a complete stranger, and make it better. Make it better for them, which will in turn make it better for you, which will in turn move all that energy out into the universe. What an amazing opportunity we have for ourselves. And this is our truth. And I'm so blessed to be here today, blessed to be of service, blessed to be here with this amazing community. And please join me in saying, and so it is. So my reading today is from Creative Thought, August 2010, and it's called, I Am in Tune with Divine Nudges of Spirit. The one power and presence is everywhere, expressing in its entirety in and through me. Knowing this, I am harmoniously and intuitively live in tune with ever-present divine nudges of Spirit. I am constantly aware of promptings that lead me to the unlimited creative expression of optimal health, loving relationships, optimate living in all areas of my experience, responding intelligently and wisely to Spirit, expressing, I move in moving in right directions for my increasingly good. I know what to do and willingly move into right direction with ease and grace. Clearly responding to my intuitive knowing, I peacefully move forward into a more expansive thought, clearly recognizing what is right for me in every moment of every day. Gratefully, I live in tune with divine nudges of spirit. I joyously accept this truth, allowing it to be, and so it is. And I'd like to share a quote from Ernest Holmes. Back of the conflict of ideas, back of the din of external life and action, back in the innermost recesses of uplifted thought and silent contemplation, there is a voice. We must learn to listen to this voice. No one need go unguided throughout life, for all are divine at the center, and all are images of the Most High.
Thank you, Pat. It's perfect. So our theme this month is summer reading. And when I picked it, I had this idea that even when we read for fun, or even when we read to our kids or grandkids, or really whatever comes our way is meant for us. And so I have this idea that in any book, in any story, there is something in it which resonates with me. And there is something there for me to take meaning from or to understand the value of. In other words, I'm always growing and thriving and becoming through anything and everything that comes my way, even if it's the novel on my nightstand. So I'm revisiting a favorite childhood author, E.L. Konigsburg, and she wrote a book called George. And the talk title today is The One Who Lives Inside, because the story of George is the story of 12-year-old Ben, who's a science prodigy, who goes to an alternative school where kids of all ages go to school to study their academic subjects, and he happens to be very advanced in science, so he's in a lab with kids of all ages doing all these chemistry experiments and so forth. But the thing that's special about Ben for himself is that he has within him, and has known always that he has within him, what he calls his little old man named George. And George talks to him. And George tells him things, and George helps him. George is the one who memorized the tables needed for chemistry so that Ben could concentrate on doing the experiments and have all that knowledge at his disposal. It was George that did that for him. Now, because Ben is in this school with kids of all ages, he has sort of gotten used to being around older kids. And the guy that was his lab partner for a couple of years is now a senior in the school. And in chemistry class, even though they're all working on the same things, seniors have extra privileges. So Ben is no longer William's lab partner. And this is causing a struggle because, you know, when you're 12 years old and you look up to someone and you are flattered that they want you to be their lab partner, you miss it when it's gone, and you wonder what you can do to impress him and stay connected and, you know, kind of just be around him some more. And the truth is, William is a user. He was with Ben because Ben is smarter than he is and would do all the work, and he could get all the credit. And so William's idea of Ben is very different than Ben's idea of William. So I think what's fascinating about this book, besides the middle school dynamics, which we all remember fondly, right? Fondly, middle school? You'd do it again, right? No, not even close. In rereading this book, I found a couple of things that made me realize just how spiritual this story is. The first thing was when George tells Benjamin to stop fussing over something. His mom tells him what a starfish is. He finds a starfish on the beach. His mom tells him what it's called. Ben's looking at it going, it's not a fish. There's no gills. There's no fins. It's not a fish. And George says, things aren't always what they're called. Oh, that's rather metaphysical, don't you think? And then the second thing that made me notice this book in a spiritual way was when George is talking to Ben about complications in the lab. There's some stealing going on in the lab, and Nobody knows who's doing it, and it's a problem because this is an alternative school, and if there's a shadow on this science program, on the freedom that the kids have to be in the lab and do their work, it could get shut down. And he doesn't want that to happen. So he is not sure how to figure out what's going on. And here's what George says. Yes, I'm talking about the thefts in your lab. Ben asks him, well, what do you know about them that I don't? And George says, I know, dear Benjamin, that you are prime suspect number 1. And how come you know that? Because I'm here and you're there, and I don't get confused by a lot of outside happenings. I can come to conclusions faster than you can. So George is this inner voice that is not in the world and yet has insight and information and a knowing that goes beyond what Ben can see and hear and process from his perspective. And isn't that the story of us and our own still small voice? Now, George is not small, except in Ben's mind. He's loud and he's rude and he nags and he yells to get Ben's attention. But when you think about it, that's what happens to all of us, right? We don't listen to our intuition unless it hits us upside the head sometimes, right? So here's this relationship that this 12-year-old kid has had since birth. And that's how we come into this world. We come in with a knowing within us beyond our years, beyond our human experience. We have a higher perspective than we are able to express or that we give ourselves credit for. And this cycle of discovery and being able to utilize this inner wisdom is something that we all sort of grow into. And the way the story is told between Ben and George is the story of this cycle of understanding and using our inner voice. So we're all born knowing. We can talk to this voice. We can let it guide us. It's where our creativity comes from. It's that bright idea we get. Have you ever gone to an elementary school science fair and seen what the kids invent? Things that actually work. Where does that come from? Where does that come from? It's that creative urge that lives within all of us. In Ben's case, George has a very deep voice. And on the occasion when George actually speaks out loud, which is usually only in an emergency or if Ben is talking in his sleep, it's a very deep voice. So it very obviously is something other than just Ben's normal voice. All right. So we were born knowing this, but then our culture interferes. And a lot of times, kids especially are misunderstood. The whole idea of the imaginary friend, right? When this book was written in the 70s, pop psychology was really big. People would take a couple psychology classes and then run around diagnosing each other. So one night when Ben's father and his new wife overheard Ben's sleep-talking conversation with George and heard the two different voices and the back and forth, they decided that he must be schizophrenic and needed to see a psychiatrist. So there's a label that's put on us sometimes, or our inner guidance that we want to follow gets dismissed as crazy or silly, or you're too old for that, or you're too young for that. We get labeled and we get shut down. And what happens, of course, is if we are continuously being shut down or being told what we should be thinking and feeling, we don't trust ourselves anymore. Right? We don't trust ourselves. We try to rely on what we can see and what we hear. But those of us with some awareness realize that there's always more going on than what we can see and hear. But in this time, in the story, and in our own lives, when we've been trying to be true to ourselves that made someone else uncomfortable, we get shut down. And so there's this call to fix it. Right? So you go to therapy, or in Ben's case, you go to the psychiatrist. And We try to make you better. We try to, get rid of the false thing and stick with what's true. Test tubes don't lie. Let's focus on the facts here. Let's be in the real world. So to cope with that dichotomy between what we are pulled to do and what everything outside of us says we should do, we ignore the voice or we forget about it. How many of you can sense a gap in your own life from the time you were a kid and you knew things to the time you were an adult and you realized maybe you really did know them, and in between there's a bunch of blank space because you didn't trust yourself, or you were in a relationship where you were made wrong all the time, or you didn't have the confidence to take on that art project or that new job because you didn't trust the urging within you that said, this is your next step. Go. Run, be free. So we've all had to come to terms in some way with reconciling our inner self with the outer world. The thing about that inner voice, though, is it's just really inconvenient, right? It's always wanting me to do something that I'm not quite comfortable doing, or it's going to make somebody else upset, or any number of excuses you can find to keep doing what you're doing because it's more comfortable than doing something new. That inner voice is truth speaking. That inner voice is the spirit within us, that spiritual essence of who we are, wanting to express uniquely as us in this world. And our conditioning a lot of times makes us hold back. Anytime you hear yourself say, well, I'm just fill in the blank. What? I've always been nervous around people. I'm just not very good at something. Or anytime you hear a parent say, girls can't or boys shouldn't, that's that cultural coaching that is shutting down that conversation that would flow freely if we would simply make room for it and we don't ignore it. And so over time we forget that we even have the inner voice. We look outside for experts and advice and ideas and ways to move, ways to learn what we should be doing. And that's great if it matches up with who we are or with our own personal timing, but it doesn't always do that, does it? So in the story, Ben at one point chooses William over George, his old lab partner, over his inside voice. He really wants to get in William's good graces, and so he doesn't want to see that William is part of the problem in the chemistry lab. He really just can't see it. So basically, he just tells George that no, that he's not listening to him. He doesn't want to know about it, and George steps out of chemistry. Now, George still talks to him about other things, his brother, his mom, his dad and his wife, and all that, but he's silent when it comes to chemistry. So when George takes his chemistry test, his grades aren't as high. He's not getting that inner help that he needs. It gets so bad, this tug of war between the world and the inside self, that at one point Ben is emotional and, as George says, all wound up, and he lashes out at George and he tells him to shut up. And George does. And so there's a period of time in the story where Ben is totally on his own, meaning in his intellect, based on his 12-year-old experience, without any insight, inspiration, intuition working with him. And of course, things are harder. Things are harder. Our main quote for this week from the book is that Ben was annoyed. He didn't like having George tell him things that he didn't want to hear that were correct. Right? We know our inner voice is true sometimes, and yet we still don't want to hear it. We don't. So, we've ignored it, we're forgetting it, we're not using that inner guidance. And for me personally, when I'm not in touch with that urge from within. I get anxious. Sort of a vague, something's just not quite right, squirreliness. Or if I find that I've got a loop in my head, and if I finally tune into what the words are, I'm nagging at myself. Nagging, usually about something that needs to be done that's not done yet. That's me disconnected from my heart of hearts, from that still small voice that offers the guidance that would allow me to move forward easily. So I move forward, just not easily. I'm sure you've been there once or twice, yeah? And so what happens for most of us then is there comes a spiritual awakening or a seeking, or at least an awareness that something is missing. Something about how I'm living my life is not right. Everything is just too hard, too big. I can't get ahead. I can't get the right job. I can't find someone to love. Can't. And so we start looking for answers. And if we are able to begin looking again within, we start to find a little bit of relief. In the book, Ben at one point wishes that George would come back. He's aware that he's making these decisions on his own and it's really hard. And, George is so good at coming up with creative solutions that have nothing to do with the facts. And Ben realizes that it was just so much easier when George was around. But the thing is, wishing does not put us back in touch with the power that is within us. It's not enough to just notice. It's not enough to just wish for that perfect relationship, or wish for a better bank account, or wish for things to change in your life. What happens is George comes back. And when I first read the part where George comes back, I thought, oh, it comes back when you're in crisis. Ben was agitated. He's enlisted his brother in the middle of the night for both of them to drive the car to the lab to prove what was going on. And he's in the car with his brother on his lap. One's doing the steering wheel, the other one's doing the pedals. You can see where this is going. This is not a good scenario at all. And in the middle of all this, George comes back. But it wasn't that it was the crisis bringing George to the forefront again, giving him voice. It was that Ben was taking action in the direction of truth. He decided he was going to prove it to himself. He thought he knew what was wrong. He knew that William was at the core of it. He needed to go to the lab to check out what was going on, and he needed to see for himself. But it was without the blinders that, William is the hero and I just want to be friends with him. It was, oh, I figured out, using the science in the book, I figured out what's going on. And I think it's William. I need to go see. And the minute that happened, George shows up. The minute we take action, the minute we take a step into the right direction, knowing that we are on the path of truth, the universe says yes and rushes in. George shows back up and starts talking. Much to Ben's dismay, because of course he's still rude and loud and interrupts and has his own ideas about everything. But the truth is he was there to help, and help he did. And it happened because Ben took action. The final step in this awakening, in this life of the voice within, and our ability to really use it, is integration. And so the way the book concludes about Ben and George is 2 years later. William's off at college, but he didn't get the scholarship because he flunked chemistry. And his lab partner, she's married to somebody else. That's a whole different story. We didn't go there this time. And Ben, well, he got older. His voice deepened. And he had promised never again to forget George. It sounds something like this. George says, I want you to listen to me always. Don't neglect me, Ben. Remember me now, especially now, as the pull of your courses and the pull of your classmates tries to drown out my voice forever. It's a critical time, Ben. Always listen to me, Ben. If you don't shut me up forever now, I'll be rich within you. You'll always have me to fall back on. Okay, George, I promise. But I don't really see how you can help. I don't really see how I can help but listen if you're talking. Well, you could stop hearing me, Ben. Don't do that. I won't, George. And so what happens is Ben's voice gets deeper. In other words, that deep voice from within that always represented George becomes his own voice. So he speaks from that power within, with his human perspective and emotions and feelings and so forth, but always connected to that place of wisdom that lies within him. And when you understand the word wisdom, the root of it is to know or to see. In other words, to understand. But it's utilizing the knowledge and the world experience that we have, our intellect, along with the common sense and insight, that inner guidance, that intuition. It's using them both together that we are able to move from our power in the world. You know, it's knowing the facts, but then it's also resonating with the truth of who you really are so that it shows up in all of your actions, in all of your words. In the Metaphysical Bible, it talks about will and wisdom. The will of man, our choices, the direction we set for ourselves. When the will of man adheres to wisdom faithfully, and carries out its work and the plans that are idealized in wisdom. In other words, that highest and best ideal scenario that comes from, if everything were perfect, this is what it would look like. When we align our choices with that picture, with that wisdom from within, a consciousness of harmony and peace is created. Spirit continually breathes into such individual the inspiration and knowledge necessary to give him superior understanding. Understanding, being able to use all that we know through our brains and our experiences in the world in a way that keeps us true to ourselves. And that's really our spiritual awakening, is to bring that spiritual self into everyday life. So your call this week is to be aware, be mindful. How open is the door to George? How open are you to your own inner voice? Take a look closely. If you hear nagging in your head, or you just got smacked, take a look and look for the kernel of truth within it that wants to be heard, that wants to come forth through you. Ask George in you to be creative, to clarify, to be inspired. Let that inner wisdom be the fuel that you are. And I'll close with words from Ernest Holmes from this thing called life. We must learn to live by inspiration. That means we should let the spiritual depths of our being flow through our conversation and into our actions. Our whole purpose is to make the intellect an instrument for the spirit. The one within, your George, is the real you. Namaste. So please join me in a moment of prayer. Taking that deep breath and letting our attention rest on our heart of hearts, that place within us where all peaceful, harmonious energy lives. That place where we truly know the God within, that spiritual resonance, that place of yes. And resting in this place, I am reminded that all that I am comes from here. That the power that is the presence of God within me is the very energy of my life. And I fling wide the door, opening to that greater good that wishes to express through and as my life, through and as me. And as I know this energy of life is in me, I see it in all people. I find that as I look with the eyes of spirit out onto the world, I see that connection, heart to heart. I feel that love. I recognize all that is good everywhere I look. And so I claim and know that every step on my path is guided and guarded by the wisdom that wells up from within me. That same energy that is the infinite love that we all are part of. That all-powerful energy which lives through each one of us together in unity, in peace and harmony. And as I know it for myself, I know it for all. I speak a word for everyone, that each step brings us a clearer understanding, a deeper wisdom, a wide open channel to access that still small voice within, even when it's cranky and loud and irritable. Trusting and knowing that life is for us, that every conversation, every person, every circumstance, every book on the nightstand has a message for us to lift and uplift, to expand and transcend, to become that greater yet to be. And so I am grateful for the blessings of life in all their many forms, and happy to release this word into law, for I know that in the mind of God, that perfection already is. That full expression is already expressing, unfolding in space and time, just as it should be. And so it is.
Summer sun settles in its rightful place. Ocean breeze whispers right across my face. And lying in the sand without a care in sight, basking in the splendor of the birds in flight. And it's all about the awe and wonder. Riding bikes and cruising through the city streets, passing all the faces smiling cheek to cheek, and flying kites in colors made of greens and blues, catching up with friends you thought you never knew. And it's all about the awe and wonder. And it's all about the light of summer. When it's time to take the bus back home, can you spare a dime? A dime is all you need to own. It's the simple things that living brings. And it's all about the awe and wonder. In the light of summer, walking up the shore to meet the rocks and waves, taking time to savor all that God has made, and matching all the outer good with what's inside. Grateful that this life is just a joyous ride. And it's all about the awe and wonder. And it's all about the light of summer. take the message home. It's all mine, mine to have when I am grown. It's the simple things that Spirit brings, and it's all about the awe and wonder in the light of summer. It's the awe and wonder in the light of summer. In the light of summer.
All right, please join me in our affirmation. I'll say a line and give you time to repeat it right where you are, for it's true everywhere. Divine wisdom within me flows through each moment of my day. I see Spirit at work in all things. And so it is. Wonderful. All right, we have some fun things going on now. Thank you to everybody who came Friday morning. I think we had a really good time. Yes, we all look a little different with our masks on. You had to step further into the garden before we could tell who it was. But thank you all for coming. We had coffee and donuts in a safe and friendly way, and it was a lovely time spent Friday morning. You're invited every Friday. This coming week, it'll be at 9 o'clock. Bring a chair to sit in, your own coffee, wear your best mask, and I'll have donuts. And it's just a nice hour and a half to chat and get caught up from a safe distance and enjoy the shade. And it's still cool that time of day. It's just a lovely time to be together in a way that's working for us now. So I enjoyed it. I know that everyone that came did too. So do come, bring your friends. Let's do this. If we get too big for the space, we'll move out to another spot of shade out in front of the bookstore. So no worries, we won't breathe on each other, okay? We'll just love. We just love. And eat donuts, because donuts are love in cake form. Everybody knows. Yeah. All right, we have Wednesday night, we have a guest speaker coming to us. Kathy Scott is a practitioner and ministerial candidate who is quite accomplished in several areas, primarily mentoring and supporting women and girls in the community. And she will be speaking to us. Her title is, wait for it, What is this longing? Nope, yearning. What is this yearning? So it sounds like something that we can all relate to. You know, that urge to make life better, whatever that means to each of us in a given moment. So join us on Wednesday night via Zoom at 7 o'clock for Kathy Scott and her talk. And there's always discussion afterwards. It's a great way to tap into your spiritual nature midweek, just in case you've forgotten since today. Yeah, okay. Right before the service at 6:15, we have a call-in meditation with Nisa Burrows. It's a guided meditation over a conference call phone number, which that number and the Zoom link for later on they're both in the e-blast and on the website. So join us for a little meditation before the talk, and we'll see you on Wednesday. We also have something exciting coming up. We're going to do a book study starting in September. It's the book In the Flow of Life by Eric Butterworth. You might remember him from Spiritual Economics. This is a 6-week book study. You do a little reading of a couple of chapters and answer some questions, just reflecting on how this shows up in your own life. And then we'll come together and have a discussion on those questions and just explore some ideas of abundance, broadening our idea of what abundance really is and what that flow of life feels like so that we might enjoy it more. So if you're looking to expand your life, this is a great way to do it. So we'll start September 10th on Thursdays in the afternoon from 1 to 3, or you can take the same book study on Saturdays starting September 12th from 3 to 5. So all of this is posted on the website. There's a flyer out there. It'll be in your e-blast from now until September, so you'll have lots of opportunities to get the details. Register by calling or emailing the office, and a suggested donation is $40 per person. But get registered first. We'll send you more information, and I just wanted to make sure you knew that it was coming so you could save that time slot for a really nice way to be together online. Okay. And then one more date to save is September 13th. That's Sunday, September 13th. We are going to do an evening garden service. So we're going to meet in the meditation garden at 7 o'clock on that Sunday and have a short version of our Sunday service. And we will do it the same way we do coffee and donuts. We'll ask you to bring your own chairs, wear your best mask, and if you want to bring your beverage, bring a beverage, and we'll set up in little camps separated from each other so that we are safe and we have an opportunity to be together for a service. It's something we're going to try and see how it works. If we find that we don't fit in the garden, we'll move to another area, but we can do all of that night. So I just want you to kind of hold that date in your mind, September 13th, Sunday in the evening for a Sunday service. And we'll keep you posted. As you know, we are all flexible like the willow in this time of pandemic because it could change, but I am seeing us all there safely enjoying each other's company in a shortened version, and I hope that sounds as exciting to you as it does to me. All right, I think that's it for this week. So know between now and then that you are loved.